Bernard Regan, it's a pleasure to meet you. I'm looking forward to this conversation. This is, as I mentioned before we started recording, this is more of a man on the street type of conversation. It's the interview format to give people a sense of who you are and what you do, and that people in insurance are doing some pretty interesting things these days. So we'll start right off. Bernard, who are you and what do you do?
So, pleasure to be here. So I'm a principal at Baker Tilly, and I head up the Forensics Technology Focus Group. I've been at Baker Tilly for about 20 years now. Actually, it's 20 years today, which is awesome. I'm fundamentally based in London, where I spend a lot of time in the US. Percentages around 20-30% of my time. Practice areas is digital forensics, cyber investigations, eDiscovery, data analytics, and then the major piece that I'm working on at the moment is the insurtech community and the projects that we have going on that as well. I've been working and spearheaded insurtech products. The major one that we're working with at the moment is called Quantum, which is a business interruption and business income loss platform. And it helps insurers look at the vast volume of claims coming through from NatCat events. And then we help with the measurement of the losses. And then we help the community, both insurance and the policyholders as well, come up with a sensible number.
Yeah. Business interruption is one of those really interesting coverages where I think everyone across the ecosystem hates it. The business, I think for a lot of businesses, it's complex. Like the BI worksheet is complex. Trying to understand it, where cash flows, and if something breaks down, what might you do? And it's not revenue lost, it's income lost. They don't quite understand it. Then they send the information to the broker, and the broker's, if you don't understand it, we don't understand it. We're just going to pass this along to the underwriter, and the underwriter receives it and says, I know this is wrong, but let's just move forward. And then a claim occurs, and shocker, there's conflict around that. For the uninitiated, and maybe even for the initiated, can you talk about business income for a second? Because I don't want to leave that topic, since clearly I would welcome, and I think the industry would welcome, any technology that would simplify this process. But what is business interruption in reality versus what I think the three pillars of the ecosystem get confused about?
So I'll talk of this. So I'm not an accountant by trade, so I've got to preface that, but I've been working with the forensic accountants for the last 20 years. The premise of business interruption is there's a loss of profits or loss of revenue due to an incident, whether that's fire, flood, catastrophe-based, or cyber attack, or recall elements, something like that. The idea is that the forensic accountants that are in the group that I work in, they'll be asking for financial statements. They'll be looking for the financial information to be able to predict what would happen but for the event. So if you were trending to be on an upward trajectory, then they would take that into account when they look at the loss. The disconnect often comes through the policy wordings not being as clear as they could be. So there's lots of things that the policyholder will think that they can claim for, continuing expenses and costs, but the policy doesn't actually cover that because it's a business cost rather than a cost that would have been incurred before the event. So again, there's that balance. But back to your point about the sort of the pushing and the pulling of a claim situation, the traditional way of an expert on the insured side, an expert on the policyholder side, and then this meeting in the middle to try and discuss, figure out what the reasonable claim is. That's been around for hundreds of years with the whole property development, or property policy development. With the new emerging markets like cyber and recall, there's this change that we can be this person in the middle of saying, okay, we'll take the information from the policyholder. We understand the policy language and we know what the insurance community are looking for. We know how to measure that. And we try and synthesize that process to become more efficient and more transparent for everybody. That's what we've been aiming to do. And that's what we do, whether it's an energy loss, whether it's a manufacturing loss, whether it's a professional service loss, all similar metrics in the calculation methodology, but obviously the trigger's slightly different. What we try to do as a company, because Baker Tilly is the 6th largest accountancy firm in the US, and that gives us the breadth of the experience of all of the professionals and experts we have. So what we did was 6 years ago, we sat in a room and we designed this thing called Quantum. And Quantum actually takes all of the process I mentioned so far, puts it into a single platform. So the deficiencies, the not knowing where you are in the process, not understanding who's waiting for what information, who's supposed to be providing that, All of that is built into this one platform that everybody has access to. So we're trying to help the community on the commercial side, not the personal lines, because that's a different beast on its own. But trying to use the wealth of knowledge from the accountants and taking in technology and understanding the pain thresholds, the blocking places where people say, I provided this information 3 months ago, nothing's happened.
Yeah.
We address all of that in the platform. So again, we're trying to help the community, but the business interruption piece seems to be the most complex because it is very subjective, and you will have policyholders who are very passionate about their companies and they'll have a vision in terms of where they were going and what they were going to do. But when you look at pure numbers, it's then trying to strike that balance between what's actually working from a revenue and a sales standpoint versus where you were hoping to go, and the whole budget versus actual algorithm coming into play as well. So again, it is a minefield, but we've got over 108 professionals in our team who do this day in, day out across the globe, which is awesome. We try and educate the brokers, the policyholders, the insurers, all to come along on this journey to make sure that everybody knows the sort of the playing field and the rules. So there's no surprises, and we try and get this done as efficiently as possible.
Yeah. An example, I just came back from a conference and we were talking about business interruption, and I was talking to an underwriter, and I was like, and how like it feels fundamentally broken. Like everyone in the system hates this thing. And an example was Hurricane Maria. I forget the year, a category 5 hurricane that just sat over Puerto Rico, and the US mainland has a lot of pharmaceutical exposure in Puerto Rico. And I remember speaking to a forensic accountant who was like 12 plus months into trying to unwind because to your point, yeah, the facility was damaged, but they have other alternate facilities. So they were able to move production somewhere else, and managing that gets to be a nightmare. The underwriter I was speaking to, so this is 2025, the underwriter we're speaking to is, I still have open Maria claims for business interruption. So they have not been resolved. So it sounds like Quantum looks to like keep everybody in the loop from day one to the present. So that should dramatically collapse the amount of time a claim could be settled for BI, is what I'm hearing from you.
That's right. And again, we have to be careful about the level of the claims. Quantum is very specifically built for, like you just said, hurricane comes through, wipes out a lot of businesses and homes and a big insurance event. What you'll find is the loss adjusters and the insurance community doesn't have the ability always to ramp up that quickly to adjust and measure those claims. So what we're able to do is, and we saw this with COVID in the way that we dealt with the Quantum platform, was we're able to send out 400 what we call document request lists for information from the policyholders within about 30 seconds. So instantly, 30 seconds time period.
That's pretty close.
As close as it can get, I think. So we send that out, and the policyholders are immediately put in the system, answering questions, providing financial information. Because we work with the insurance community, we've already built the calculation models that sit behind. And, that this stuff can get turned around in 1 or 2 days if everything aligns and all the information is put in correctly. For the bigger losses, the larger losses, 1 million, 2 million, 5 million, 10 million, hundreds of millions sometimes, the process just needs to have everybody aligned with what needs to be done. And I think that's the biggest thing, is we always seem to be the ones not running away from the incident. We're running towards us, trying to help people and saying, hey, don't worry about us. We just need all this information to help you out. But often we're seen as the representation of the insurance companies, whereby we're seen to be trying to pick holes or to reduce the claim. That's completely irrelevant to what we do, because we're completely independent of insurance companies and policyholders. That's why in the emerging markets, still said before, in the cyber and the recall market, this person in the middle, we have no vested interest in increasing the claim or decreasing the claim. It is the claim. And when we measure that, it's taking all of the information that we need to present it to the insurance carriers and say, okay, we think this is reasonable, or we don't think this is covered because of these reasons. What do you think? Again, we're just survivors. We're not policy language interpreters because we're not lawyers. But again, it's trying to make sure that everybody's aware of the information we need. It does get more difficult when you start talking about things such as fire, cyber attacks, because the information that you would typically give to the accountants in the team isn't available, because it's either encrypted through a cyber attack or it's and the computers are incinerated. So again, we have to make sure that the information we're getting is stress tested and make sure that it's purposely given for the insurance claim. But yeah, I could give you horror stories where some of these insurance claims I'm looking at the date 2025, still going on from 2017. So again, we just want to expedite this in the way it can. And quantum is one way that we're doing this, and we're opening up to larger cases because now it's becoming a claims management system where information will be provided, and we're using a bit of AI and a bit of machine learning to use history to project what these losses could look like, and then taking the information provided by the policyholder to make sure that the collaboration works really well.
Yeah, we've already used the term forensic accountant, and I think many in that's going to be watching this probably understands that. But you're a forensic technologist, and I had never heard that term before. Please explain.
So forensic technology is a generalist term which comes about a collection of different things. The easiest way to think about it is if there's any technology, any data, anything that needs to be preserved or collected in an evidential matter, then typically you see my team. We will do things such as digital forensics on cell phone servers, emails, all that good stuff, whether it's for investigation or preservation of HR matters or governance compliance matters. We'll do data analytics. So we look at things like predictive analytics. We do pre-risk modeling for the insurance community, trying to help them understand what their exposures could look like under certain scenarios. Then we'll do the eDiscovery bit, which is linking into the insurance community because, again, there's lots of class action cases going on. So we've got to go through hundreds, thousands of documents sometimes, and looking at ways we can use AI to streamline the review of those documents for particular insurance cases. And then the InsurTech thing was brought in quite recently, and I say quite recently, 5-6 years ago, because there's that injection of intelligence needed to make sure that people are going along with the journey of InsurTech. Because again, insurance and technology doesn't seem to work well together if you look at them independently. But when you start chipping away and understanding how they actually work, there's a lot of collaborative ways that the technology could be used to enhance what the insurance community is doing. So whilst I am a forensic technologist, I'm a bit of everything. The only thing I'm not is really an accountant. But I've worked with them and enough has rubbed off on me, and I could probably give a simple business interruption claim. But the technology bit is what drives us in our team. And with the advancement of AI and machine learning now, that's forever evolving into that space as well.
Yeah. So what are some emerging, we'll call them disruptors to society that require forensics around this? I think everyone's aware of cyber attacks and other stuff, but what are you beginning to see? And I'm scared you're going to say that AI bots are taking over the world, but what are you starting to see on your end?
AI is really interesting from our perspective because we've been doing AI a number of, and before it was called AI, it was called data mining, right? It's not necessarily different. It's just a different skin on the service, on some of the services that we do. The AI element is key to not get taken away and swept away with the momentum of what's going on in the world that we see, right? Yes, you can do ChatGPT. Yes, you can do all of the animation stuff about doing phone calls and avatars of yourself and present people. And I could take this picture of us right now and I could do a whole different script of something we never said. You can do all of that stuff. But what we try and do is when we're instructed to come in and look at the AI element of what people are trying to do, it's sometimes not needed in the way that they think. So again, I'm not reluctant to use the word AI, but I'm reluctant to walk into a meeting and someone said, okay, we need AI, to know that I'm walking out with an AI solution, because sometimes it's just not. The way we help the insurance community is things such as looking at AI to take a lot of the information that they've gathered over the years, whether it's underwriting, whether it's claims information, etc., and coming up with solutions that can synthesize the information they've got, take what's new in terms of come in and then give the answer that's needed or potentially needed based on the information that's been gathered over the years. Another thing that we work on is auto reviews, where you've got large insurance companies providing the capital for smaller MGAs or smaller insurance communities. They have to report on a monthly basis what the claim volume is, what the value, etc. They come in hundreds of different formats. So we've developed an AI large language model, which will actually ingest all that information and then put it out into a uniformed format that anybody can use into their generic systems. So again, it's trying to use AI in the most efficient way not just from a question and answer standpoint, because that's not always what's needed. But yeah, AI is going to disrupt, and AI is very clever at trying to take the efficiencies of what you're trying to achieve and making sure that you can use technology in the right way to achieve them.
Okay. What problems should carriers be focused on today in the next 2 to 3 years? Is it AI, or is Baker Tilly or yourself seeing a different set of issues that insurers should probably focus more attention on?
So that's a very broad question, and I'll deal with the ones that I can speak to, and then I'll throw away comment at the end. In areas and classes of insurance such as cyber, we get involved very heavily, whether it's the underwriting stage, whether it's pre-risk analysis, we will go in and help identify the exposures on behalf of policyholder and the insurance community, whether we're looking at the claims information that's been provided by sort of the claim event that's happened with the policyholder. The information gap in cyber is there's too much information at the underwriting level to be able to understand what the true risk is. So if you take any company and you look at their business continuity plan, disaster recovery plan, cyber response plan, they may have different procedures and timelines about what recovery looks like. One disaster recovery say will be up and running within 48 hours. I'll sit here today and go on record that no company after a cyber attack is going to be fully recovered after 48 hours. It's not going to happen, especially if there's a ransomware event. So when the insurance community look at the information that's been provided on proposal forms, it doesn't always match the actual incident-related scenarios that could happen. So there's often a disconnect between what was said at the underwriting level versus what comes to light at the claims level. So again, trying to instill more information into cyber insurance would be looking at external information that we have. What does history tell us about this size of company in this industry with this type of attack? We look at modeling, we look at projecting out what these losses could look like, because we have a wealth of data that we can use. We use their data as well. And then we can start using a bit of AI, trying to figure out, okay, let's play this out. Let's really play this out from a tabletop exercise. This happened, what are we going to do, etc. So those types of scenarios in the cyber world is very new because it's forever evolving. The biggest threat we see in the cyber world right now is two elements, really. One is the cryptocurrency in terms of lots of things such as cyber jacking or taking over on your phones, and your phones are seeding your cryptocurrency. A lot of that is still going on, which the insurance community is struggling with, because in terms of justifying the crime that someone's got in, it's quite hard to do. And then the other thing is that we're seeing at the moment, we're having lots of conversations about, is the rebuilding of AI services. So if a company goes down with a ransomware event and then encrypts, say, 100 servers that all post all of your AI solutions on there, they may have been made up over the last 4 or 5 years. Behavioral analysis of your people using your laptops, or it might have been ingesting all of your emails. It may have been taking another language model in place as well. When the event happens, there's an argument that you can never recover to what you had before. So lots of the cyber insurance language is about, we'll put you back to where you were before the event happened. But if you can't get to that point, then what? So again, there's this gray area at the moment where AI is causing people to think about their organizations. Because again, when you ask, a board member, a C-suite member of a company, how are you using AI in your company? You're going to get very mixed responses. You're going to have someone who's very interested and give you a very detailed response, and you're going to get somebody who has no idea, but will try and give an answer which is completely wrong. So again, when you have that, and you're trying to use that for the basis of projecting what losses could look like, or to come up with a price model or premium, it doesn't really gel. And then when you have the claim, you're like, oh, that's what it means. Oh no, that's wrong. So again, there's that sort of at the moment. But I think from a very high level, I think the commercial insurance could learn a lot from the personal lines insurance in terms of technology. I think the personal lines has a very good track record of using technology to synthesize claims, get them done as quickly as possible, whereas commercial seems to be a bit more longer term in terms of the solution. So again, looking at technology and how we can do that. But again, this all does come down to, and this is where we spend a lot of our time as Baker Tilly with our clients, making sure that what we develop with the clients that we have is actually going to be beneficial for them, rather than just making a system for the sake of making a system. Because I've got hundreds of horror stories in my head, which we haven't got time to go into today, but there's lots of conversations that we've been part of. If that's not going to work the way you think, how about something like this? And then it's a big culture change in terms of what they understand and where they're trying to get to. So again, that's where I think the sort of the fear and scaremongering is at the moment, is nobody's truly understanding how AI is used in companies. What happens to that AI environment if an attack happens, or if you lose it for whatever reason? And then that cultural education of AI and technology in companies varies from individual to individual.
Yeah. So let's transition to something a little bit more lighthearted, because that was intense. You are a runner. You enjoy running. So a final question people get to know a little bit more about you is, what are some of the more interesting places that you've actually gone running?
Okay, good question. So running has been something I've been doing since 2015, and I set myself a target. So it was, the first year was a 5K every month. Then it turned into a half marathon a month, and it turned into crazy runs, and then it went to a marathon a month. The crazy runs, for the people in the UK who listen to this, there's a military base in the Brecon Beacons in Wales, where I'm from, and it's part of the SAS military camp, and it's called the Fandan, and it's 15 miles, which isn't too far, but it's going up a mountain called Penavan, which is 1,000 meters each way. You've only got 4 hours to do it. I did that with no gel, no food, no anything, because I didn't understand it back then. And I did something called bonked, where I just collapsed a mile from the finish line. So I managed to get back and finish it. So that was probably my most scariest one. And then I've been Northern California. There's one called the Biz Johnson 50-kilometer run. So I did that. And then the coldest one was in Denver, where I've actually got a photo of my beard and my eyebrows and my eyelashes all frozen, because I did it in the snow, which was about minus 15 Celsius. So yeah, so I just like doing different adventures and pushing myself as much as I can. And running is fantastic, hearing the mind and coming up with all wonderful, weird things that we always do at Baker Tilly. So yeah, just love running.
Bernard, it's a pleasure to talk to you. And it's clear, like, you need to clear your mind when you have to deal with a future that feels very scary around, like, what AI will potentially do. But Bernard, thank you.
Thank you, Nick.